Let's turn to the Ulez, because recently the controversial expansion has led to the Mayor Sadiq Khan claiming that 4,000 people die prematurely every year because of pollution. These are very bold claims. The research Mr. Khan refers to was conducted by the ERG. Now, that's not the good and holy ERG, of which I used to be chairman, the wonderful European Research Group, but some outfit called the Environmental Research Group of Imperial College London. But new research has suggested these figures aren't all they are cracked up to be. And these are the sort of claims which we should be absolutely certain about before implementing such an anti-motorist measure. But I'm delighted to be joined now by the author of this research, Ben Pyle, and the anti-Ulez activist, Alan Miller, of the Together Association. So the Mayor has issued a statement, which I'm going to come to later, saying you're trying to mislead the public by calling into question the scientific evidence. What do you say to that?
Well, that's an interesting reply. In fact, the ERG's research was based on a report in 2018 by the Committee on the Medical Effects of Air Pollution, and that found that there may be a relationship between increased mortality risk and air pollution, or the other way around. But it was very careful to say that you shouldn't express that relationship in terms of deaths. Deaths mean something very particular to most people, obviously someone dying. But actually they're talking about something that later has been called the statistical construct. So that this means that if you tot up all of the amount that they estimate our lives to be shortened by air pollution, then you can sort of somehow call that so many deaths. Actually what happens is, very early on in the report, if you read it in the first few pages of the discussion, it turns out there's very much a debate about this technique, this statistical technique. And so they caution that using the word deaths will mislead the public. In the report itself, the ERG report says using the term deaths will mislead the public. Exactly. And
the Mayor's now accusing you of misleading.
That's right. That's right. And so they're saying you mustn't use the word. Well, you shouldn't use the word deaths because it's misleading. And there's the discussion about how to correctly frame these terms.
Alan, you're protesting against the Ulez extension. What's your main objection? Isn't it a good thing to reduce traffic?
No, I don't think it is, ostensibly, but there's a number of things. Firstly, it's undemocratic in the sense that the so-called consultation rejected over 5,000 respondents on the basis that they had a relationship, they supported fair fuel. It also then rejected over 60% of people that said they didn't want it. He also the Mayor bought ANPR cameras before the actual consultation. And now he's smearing people and calling them names, everything from deniers to conspiracists, but not engaging in the debate when people are saying they don't want it. This is boroughs, councils, residents, businesses, ordinary people. And actually, there's no causation whatsoever in this. This is why Together's very proud to be supporting Ben Pyle in this, because there's no causation whatsoever. He knows, TfL and others, they know. I would go as far to say this to Sadiq Khan. You're actually lying. So you want to call people names, it's very shabby, but you know unequivocally this is not the case, and it's the last position he's got on this. And we're saying that Ulez needs to go. The majority of people don't want it. It's a stealth tax on people, and it's a war on cars in a cost of living crisis. It's unacceptable.
Hasn't he got a democratic mandate? He won the vote. The Tory candidate lost.
He did win the vote. He did win the vote, but he didn't win the vote on the basis of implementing an expansion of Ulez. And so that's very clear. And if he wants to take a referendum on it, then perhaps we should do that. But that's essentially what he said he didn't want when he had the consultation. He said this is not a referendum. So it seems like the Mayor's not happy to engage democratically, and it needs to go.
And Ben, is there any number you would put on the number of deaths that come from car pollution in London?
I think mortality probably isn't the way to address it. Since the middle of the last century, since the 1950s or 60s, life expectancy in the UK has been increasing by 72 days per person per year. And so we're talking, if there is an effect of if there's a medical effect, a clinical effect of air pollution, it's in the order of 1 year of that benefit. So we're moving 72 days forward every year, and maybe we're moving 2 weeks backwards every 10 years, if you sort of
I
mean.
understand.
So it's a very difficult number to calculate against such a radical improvement as we've seen. And I think that's largely a result of increased wealth. And wealth is by far the strongest determinant of health outcomes. And what we point out in the report is that this is undermining people's ability to do trade and move around.
Thank you very much. That's a very important point. Thank you both. That was Ben Pyle there, the author of the research, and Alan Miller, the anti-Ulez activist of the Together Association. Now, it is crucially important, as always, to hear both sides to this debate. Pollution is a real problem in various cities across the United Kingdom, and we need to address these matters. But I can't help thinking that we've already made plenty of environmental progress without resorting to oppressive, low-traffic policies. Our team actually checked the Office for National Statistics figure on deaths caused by pollution between the years of 2001 and 2021. One death has been caused by car emissions in London. So there's a vast disparity here between what Mr. Khan claims and what is suggested by the ONS. But joining me now is the director of the climate charity, Possible, Leo Murray. Leo, thank you so much for coming in, sparing your time this evening.
Thanks for having me.
You think that Ulez is the right way to deal with pollution?
Well, I think, look, let's just start with the report. Your previous guest was presenting his report. I have had the opportunity to read that report, unlike most people watching. It did not take long. It's a single A4 side, Jacob. This is a guy who has no credentials that is attacking one of the world's foremost research institutions on the health impacts of exposure to air pollution. Imperial College is one of the most important universities in the world, with world-leading academics.
That's a very, very prestigious university.
Yes.
But the point he quoted was that the ERG itself says that looking at excess deaths is not the right way to do it. Is that correct? Is that in the ERG report?
So I sent his report to the team at Imperial, who are being critiqued in it, to ask them for their thoughts. And they said, look, there is a very large and growing body of evidence. It's not just about deaths. There is a very large and growing body of evidence that exposure to traffic pollution is directly causing a whole range of very severe public health impacts. So that ranges from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, teenage psychosis is now implicated, and asthma, right? Now, my daughter was diagnosed with asthma on a high pollution day last year. It was very scary. We had to call paramedics out to our home. She couldn't breathe properly. We live near the A4 in West London. Now, there is... What you can see in the data, anybody can go and check this, is that every time there is a high pollution event and the mayor issues a warning, there is a spike in hospital admissions of children for asthma.
On the disadvantage.
This is what Ben is trying to debunk. He's saying that there's not a causal relationship here.
I don't disagree with you at all on the terrible effects of pollution. The question is Ulez the right answer, or was it in fact a terrible policy mistake of telling people to buy diesel cars promoted by the Labour government and the EU that increased particulate pollution in London? And now people who did what the government said are being penalised. And isn't that just unfair?
Well, it was largely the car lobby the motor making lobby that pushed the line that people ought to buy diesel vehicles because they're marginally more carbon efficient. That was a terrible mistake, and many people were suckered into that and bought diesel cars and are now finding that they're being penalised.
The then government and the EU pushed that very strongly to the benefit of the German car manufacturing industry.
No, I wouldn't argue with that, Jacob. That is absolutely the case.
But isn't it then very unfair to penalise the people who did what the government encouraged them to do? They thought they were doing the right thing.
Well, right now, there are actually very few people, only about 15% of the cars in outer London boroughs will have to pay this fee. Now, when you ask Londoners, they think that it's a much higher share than that. Many people are driving compliant cars now, but not realising it, thinking that they're going to be charged under this. It's only the most polluting vehicles that are going to have to pay this charge.
Thank you for coming in. I hope you'll come back. A spokesman for the Mayor of London said, the Ulez is proven to work, and expanding it London-wide will lead to 5 million more Londoners being able to breathe cleaner air. Rather than engaging in legitimate discussion and debate about this air quality, it's disappointing to see some opponents trying to mislead the public by seeking to call into question the scientific evidence. Well, I'm very grateful for their response, and the Mayor would always be welcome as a guest.